think that's good. The hour of 6 p.m. having arrived, I call to order the regular meeting of the Planning, License, and Development Committee. This meeting is being broadcast live on the City of Keene YouTube channel and channel 1302 on Spectrum. The video is also streamed on the city's website and is posted on the website by the end of the next business day, barring any technical difficulties. Copies of the printed agenda are available in the wall pockets as you enter the meeting room near the door there. The public and city councils will be recognized to ask questions and comment on the agenda items under discussion. After being recognized, all remarks are to be made through the chair. The chair will not recognize an individual a second time until everyone who wishes to speak has a chance to speak. Anyone who wishes to address the committee is asked to go to one of the microphones in the room, either at the table or standing, and identifying himself by name and address prior to speaking. That's because we do have a minute taker working remotely who's taking down notes. Written comments from the public will be accepted at the city clerk's office until Tuesday, 1 p.m. I will now call to order the regular meeting of the Planning, License, and Development Committee and declare a quorum present. That being said, we're going to go right on to our first item. First of all, where is he? Oh, there he is. Yep. Welcome, Andrew, to your first meeting of the PLD.
Thank you.
It's good to have you. You came over from MSFI. They do very important work. They do more reactive work, and ours is more proactive. We get more time to think about it, so we're glad to have you.
Thank you.
Our first item on the agenda is from the Keene Downtown Group, request to use city property for Visiting Week. And we do have the letter in our packet. And we have Amy and Adam here. Amy, you're going to start off because it's the intention of staff to fold us all into your license, correct? Adam's request will go into your license because you're the licensee. So Amy, just please give your name and address for the minute taker.
Amy Christiansen Schaffman, 10 Belmont Avenue of Keene.
And thank you both for being here. So you just want to tell us what you're adding to your license?
We're applying for our license for the 5th annual Keene Wizarding Week. Essentially, we are using Central Square and Railroad Square with applications through Parks and Rec for artist pop-ups. We also really only ask for extra trash cans. And last year, DPW placed a big bin where my husband and son did the trash removal over the weekend. So just extra trash bins next to already existing ones with extra bags in there on Friday evening, and then that big bin. And typically I work that out with DPW. Other than that, it's just Central Square and Railroad Square that we use of city property. Most of the event takes place inside the stores. And then this year we'll be adding Adam's petition for Church Street within the events.
Okay, yeah, and we do have Adam's letter in our packet. And yours deals more with the food trucks, correct?
That's correct.
Oh, I'm sorry. Adam, just give your name and address for the minute.
Adam Berube, 710 Main Street, Keene, New Hampshire.
And thank you also for being here.
Thank you.
Anyone from the panel have any questions for the petitioners? The staff have anything to add?
Sorry.
Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the use of Church Street for a Diagon Alley is a great thing. Have you reached out to any of the young groups in town that were brought up on Harry Potter that might participate in that? I'm talking to some of them already here, I'm sure, but I think they would be anxious to join something like that.
Yeah, there's already been some initial interest in the project itself. We were waiting until everything passed this committee before we really started to dive deep into that. But we are anticipating a lot of interest and a lot of people, vendors and otherwise, coming out for that day. So
We also use local artists for the Central Square and Railroad Square, which have been deemed Diagon Alley in previous years. We just try to not use the actual language when we're doing it. So it's a well-established event, so we already have a lot of those groups reach out to us without us having to do the legwork and reaching out.
Thank you.
And well, you fell right into Counselor Haas's trap. He was giving you were in the hot seat and he was giving you time to promote your event. And based on last year, I think a lot of people know about it.
Like I
Yeah.
said, this is the fifth year, so every year has been successful, immensely successful. Our first year, it kept a number of downtown businesses from closing through COVID. So each year it grows and we do a little bit more press. We bring in a little bit more local groups. This year NHDI will be performing with the kids dancing and stuff. So, and we try to get as many of our local businesses involved as we can.
Yeah, and speaking as a local business owner, it's a great time of year to bring out the people in downtown Keene, especially, summer kind of slows down in Keene, and so towards the end of the summer, this is a great sort of revenue builder for that whole entire week. And so a lot of people really look forward to it. So we're excited for it to grow and to improve it and keep it exciting.
And Amy, thank you to your husband and son for
Yeah.
picking up the trash.
Yeah, I'll tell them.
Okay, this is a public meeting. Anyone from the public have any questions or comments?
May I?
Please do.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You asked for a staff report, and I am the person who typically is involved in the protocol meetings now and reporting out to the committee. I didn't make it to this one meeting, but Terry Hood from the clerk's office did fill me in, and the group has been through the protocol process and is meeting all of staff's requirements. We'll continue to work with them as the event approaches.
Okay, and you did hear her request about the trash. We don't need to amend the motion.
No, those kind of details we can work out behind the scenes.
Thank you. Anyone from the public? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Move to recommend that the Keene Downtown Group be granted a license to use downtown city property on Central Square and Railroad Square from Wednesday, July 24th through Sunday, July 28th, 2024, to host Wizarding Week festivities, as well as permission for the closure of a portion of Church Street on Saturday, July 27th, 2024, to host a Diagon Alley event as part of Wizarding Week. Conditional upon the following: the signing of a standard revocable license and indemnification agreement. That the petitioner provide a certificate of liability insurance with the City of Keene listed as an additional insured in the amount of $1 million. That the petitioner agrees to absorb the cost of any city services provided to the event and agrees to remit said payment within 30 days of the date of invoicing. That the July 27th event on Church Street be held from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. with the times for setup and cleanup to be established with city staff. That the timeframes for use of Central Square and Railroad Square be coordinated with city staff. The submittal of signed letters of permission from any private property owners for the use of their property, and said permission is granted subject to attainment of any necessary licenses and permits and compliance with all laws and compliance with any recommendations of city staff.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion on the floor. Any comments on the motion? Andrew?
Yeah, just real brief. I just want to thank both of you for putting this together. I know that this has been going on for a couple years, and I know it's something the community really enjoys. And, I've kind of commented in the last few weeks about how we have a lot of festivals and how it's just people in our community who are generous with their time putting these together. And so I want to thank both of you for being some of those generous community members to put together what's really a great event for the community that brings people out to local businesses. And that's frankly a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well said. I'm sure we all share those sentiments. Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. This recommendation, we're an advisory committee. This will go to the full city council. Is it next Thursday? Next Thursday night. Okay?
Great. All right.
Thank you for coming, and thank you for doing this event.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Next on our agenda is Madam Sherry's Lounge, request to serve alcohol on a city row adjacent to Railroad Square.
Hello.
Hi, Adam. Good
Hi,
to see you.
Sorry, forgive my appearance. I've been painting and cleaning the new restaurant all day,
Okay.
so sorry about that.
And just to let our newer counselors know, this doesn't fall under the sidewalk cafe ordinance. This falls under a resolution for relating to Central Square Common and Railroad Square. So it's a different set of rules than what we're used to with the sidewalk cafes.
Counselor, if I might just jump in, the resolution does refer to the sidewalk cafe process, so it is incorporated in the process.
Yes, but it's a different license. But you're right.
Okay.
Okay, Adam, we have a nice short letter from you,
Yeah,
so thank you.
Yeah.
We like those.
yeah.
If you want to just speak
Sure.
to it.
So we purchased.
Oh, Adam, give your name, full name and address, please.
Adam Topfer, Winchester Street here in Keene. We purchased the former Hennessy's space, and we're going to be doing, there's a restaurant and bar in there. We'll be doing some live entertainment as well, but we would like to set up the patio exactly the same way as Hennessy's had set it up before. So nothing has changed there. We will be serving lunch and dinner on the patio. You should have a map of it, and it's exactly the same thing as was done at Hennessy's, which was approved before.
Yes, we did receive the map.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, good luck with your business.
Thank you. We're
Um,
very excited. It was a long time coming, but we're finally in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is Andy here? Oh, there he is. Okay. Andy, I believe you're the staff member who's speaking to this?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Andy Bohannon, Deputy City Manager. Met with Adam related to the Railroad Square and everything that he has proposed based on the fact that it was same layout as Hennessy's, which was probably the best that we've seen in a very long time. And he plans to continue that. We agreed to move that forward, and any conditions that are set forward on the motion, we will work with Adam to resolve and make sure that they work with us related to community events and that sort of thing. So having done community events himself, I think he knows what that entails and the meaningful that it impacts on Railroad Square. So we should be good.
Thank you. That makes it easy. Anyone on the panel have questions for staff or the petitioner? Please, Bobby.
I was with MSFI when I believe something similar came before MSFI for the same spot and for Hennessy's when they laid out their spot. And you know, we gave them a pretty hard time about late night noise
Yeah.
and that kind of thing. So I'm going to have to give you a hard time
Yeah.
as well.
Sure.
There are concerns in that neighborhood because people live there.
Sure.
They sleep there, a lot of times elderly people. You know, what can you do to make sure that it doesn't become a rowdy atmosphere
Yeah.
and, you know, your
Well,
neighbors
I'll-
are still happy with you?
Absolutely. I'll tell you, we're not doing what has been done basically 3 or 4 times in that space over the past 20 or so years. We're going in a very different direction. It's not going to be nearly as rowdy as it was before. We also, you know, we're not allowing people in the patio past 10 p.m. The doorway there will not be open past 10 p.m. You'd have to enter in through the main space. And yeah, so I just want to make it clear that this is not the same type of venue that has been there in the past.
Okay. Just to note that in the motion, we have 9:30 p.m.
Oh, so
as-
9:30, whatever's in the motion. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
As long as it's
yes,
understood.
as long as whatever's legal, yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Andy, you
sorry.
want to speak to that, please?
Just one more thing. We just asked that the motion entail language related to making sure the petitioner has a lease within the space that is being discussed.
The building itself.
What's that?
You're talking about within
Inside
that
the
building
building?
itself,
The,
yeah.
the lease between the petitioner and that he has an actual lease, physical lease to lease the space that
Yeah.
he has to come on to Railroad Square.
Yeah, I don't think the lease has been filed with the city yet, but it has been officially signed by both parties, so
Okay,
it should be
Okay.
here soon.
great.
So you're
Thank you.
well aware of the condition that Andy
Yeah.
told us about?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else from the panel? Anyone from the public have any questions or concerns? If not, I would entertain a motion. Please.
I move to recommend that Madam Sherry's Lounge be permitted to place tables and chairs on the grassed-in area immediately east of the Railroad Square pavers for the serving of food and alcohol to patrons seated in the cafe area Monday through Wednesday from 4 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. and Thursday through Sunday, noon to 9:30 p.m. This license is also subject to the following conditions: subject to the customary licensing requirements of City Council, compliance with the requirements of Chapter 46 of the City Code of Ordinances, compliance with the City of Keene Sidewalk Cafe guidelines issued by staff that the area encumbered shall not extend beyond the easterly-most entrance to the building, that a buffer of at least 1 foot be maintained from the edge of the multi-use trail pavement to the fence enclosure structure, that the tables and chairs be removed when Railroad Square is utilized by any community event licensed by the City of Keene or any event scheduled through Parks and Recreation Department, that no materials, gravels, or other alterations to the site may be made without prior approval from staff, and that the property be maintained and returned to its original state at the expiration of the license, with staff reviewing the condition of the area at the end of the season to determine any needed maintenance. This license shall expire on March 1, 2025.
And I second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. And Adam, you do understand all those requirements we
Yes, I
put
do.
forward? Any comments on the motion? Please do.
Thank you. Again, just to pay you a compliment, I'm really happy to see that space getting utilized again. And if the way you've managed to run the Pride Festival is any indication of how this will go, I think it'll be a very successful venture. And
Thank you very
I
much.
wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Look
I
forward to
appreciate
seeing it.
Thanks.
And I think we all thank you, Adam, for doing this.
Thank you.
Okay, all those in favor? It's unanimous. Once again, we're an advisory committee. This will go as a recommendation to the full city council next Thursday.
Thank you very much.
All right, and thank you for all you do.
Thanks
Thank
a
you.
lot. Have a great night.
Next on the agenda, the Kiwanis Club of Keene requesting to use city property for the tree lighting ceremony. So we're talking about the holidays here. Welcome back once again. I don't know how many years we've seen you.
My name is Peg Bruce. I live at 15 Windsor Court, Unit L in Keene, New Hampshire. And I believe we started doing this in 2013, so it's going to be our 11th year. The license we're requesting is pretty much the same as it was last year, except for the exception that we do not plan to have porta potties this year. But everything else, we're going to do the same. We'll be setting up the tree on Central Square. We'll decorate probably the Saturday after Veterans Day. We'll decorate the bandstand sometime during that week after Veterans Day. Depends when we purchase our wreaths from Franklin, New Hampshire, so someone has to drive up there and drive back with them. But we'll get that all decorated before the event. And then the day of the event, we start setting up around 1 in the afternoon. The event itself begins at 5 and ends at 8. And we're usually gone by 8:30.
Okay, and you're not going to make the mayor read this year, right?
No,
Okay,
no. Unfortunately, we stopped having the mayor read maybe 8 years ago.
yeah, I always
We
like
have
teasing the mayor.
a member who is Mrs. Kloss, and she likes reading the story.
Thank you.
The first year he got preempted by Moco Arts. They had kids actively doing things during the story.
Okay, Peg, it's always a wonderful event.
Thank you.
And the logistics that goes into it, people don't even see that part of it. You know, it's unheralded.
It's interesting, there's a lot of people in the community that don't realize Kiwanis has such a large part of what happens.
Oh, they sure do.
You know, I think it's the city that does it, not totally the city. The city's definitely, we appreciate all the support we get from the city, but it's our members and our foundation that pays for it, so.
You're part of what makes the city special. Anyone have any questions for the petitioner? Is staff? Rebecca, you're going to speak?
Sure. I was there for the protocol meeting that happened, and I know that Peg is working with the city clerk's office, so we feel strongly that they've met all of the requirements for the protocol process. They've been doing this for a long time. They're certainly seasoned professionals. But I also want to say that having been involved in the protocol process, it's very clear to me how much effort goes into this. To make our downtown look absolutely beautiful during the holiday season. So I just want to get that on the record that we really appreciate it, and we thank the Kiwanis for that.
Thank you.
And the porta potties were discussed at protocol meetings, correct? Okay, thank you. Is there anyone from the public wish to speak to this? No? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Move to recommend the Keene Kiwanis Club be granted permission to use downtown city rights-of-way on Friday, November 29th, 2024, to conduct the annual tree lighting festival, conditional upon the following: the furnishing of a certificate of liability insurance in the amount of $1 million, naming the city of Keene as additional insured, the signing of a standard revocable license and indemnification agreement, that the petitioner agrees to absorb the cost of any city services over and above the amount of city funding allocated to the event and agrees to remit said payment within 30 days of the date of invoicing, that the agreed-upon footprint and layout for the event shall encumber Central Square, including the traveled portion of the road requiring the following road closures: Central Square, West Street at Central Square, Roxbury Street from west of the Hannah Grimes parking lot to Central Square, Washington Street from Vernon Street to Central Square, and Court Street from Winter Street to Central Square, that the actual event will be held from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. with the times for setup and cleanup to be established with city staff, that free parking be granted under the provisions of the free parking policy for the following: use of spaces with dates, times, and locations to be determined in coordination with the parking division for volunteer parking during pre-event setup and post-event breakdown activities, and spaces within the event footprint on the day of the event, and said permission is granted subject to attainment of any necessary licenses or permits in compliance with all laws and compliance with any recommendations of city staff.
Is there a second?
Second.
We do have a motion on the floor. Anyone have any comments from the committee or the public? If not, all those in favor? Opposed? This recommendation will go to the full city council. Thank you for your years of effort, and it's much appreciated.
We enjoy doing it. It's a nice event.
Thank you, Peg. It's always good to see you.
Take care.
Next on our agenda is we have a communication from Attorney Thomas R. Hanna of BCM Environmental Land and Law concerning compensatory flood storage.
Thank you.
Tom,
My
I've
name
known
is-
you for a long time. It's great to see you again.
Thank you, same to
And
you.
great to have Tara back in City Hall.
Yep. So Tara and I are here representing JRR Properties, which is the owner of the 3.5 acres behind Target Cleaners and Mascoma Bank, formerly the parking lot, overflow parking lot for the Colony Mill. And I've written a letter to the city council, which I'm sorry to say is longer than Adam's, but a lot shorter than a lot of letters I've written to the
Sure
city
is.
council. So I understand this is going to be put on more time. There are several staff
That's
people.
the staff recommendation, yes.
I know that's a staff recommendation. There are several staff people who aren't here today, but I would appreciate the opportunity to tee it up, let you know what our request is. So I'll provide some background and summarize our request, and then ask Tara to show you visually, which is still a little distance from you, but if you have trouble seeing it, please let her know. The JRR owns the 3.5 acres and offered the city approximately 2.5 acres for use as a children's playground and city park, and hopefully for a launching area for kayaks and canoes into the Ashwaubenon River. That left approximately 1 acre in the north side of the parcel, northeast, and JRR is donating that to the Monadnock Conservancy, which has been fast and furiously planning its regional headquarters on that site, and has engaged in architectural and engineering and, more importantly, fundraising. So the as you can see on the, as you will see on the plans, there is about 70% of that entire parcel, that 3.5 acre parcel, is in the city's 100-year, or is in the, I shouldn't say the city's, but it's in the 100-year floodplain. And that, of course, requires, under the city regulations, and I'll just read from my letter, the floodplain regulations require compensatory storage to mitigate for any loss in flood storage and the flood storage capacity in the 100-year floodplain as a result of fill from development. And a substantial portion of the 1 acre lot will need to be filled. Also, a majority of that lot is in the 100-year floodplain, and the portions of it that are not, I think about maybe 18,000 square feet of the 44,000 square foot lot, which hasn't been, it's not officially a lot yet because it hasn't been subdivided, but that's what's planned. About 18,000 feet is upland outside of the 100-year flood, but a good portion of that is in the city's setbacks. So much of the lot for the headquarters, both for the parking lot and especially for the building, will have to be, fill will have to be added. The building is going to be a foot, will have fill that will keep it a foot to 1.5 feet out of the floodplain. City regulations require that buildings be at least a foot. So the only possible location for the compensatory area for this Monadnock Conservancy parcel is off-site and on the land that would be donated to the city. And our civil engineer, who will be here at the next meeting, I believe, but couldn't be here tonight because of a conflict in another town, has done some of the calculations to determine how large that area would be. And she had conversations this week with Don Lucier, and there may be some opportunities to benefit the city with respect to its stormwater right-of-way that goes right through this entire parcel and is somewhat aged in terms of its piping and needs the city's attention. So we'll have that input for you at the next meeting. And what I have requested in my letter is that the city council grant conditional approval for encumbering the city's land with this flood compensation storage area. And it's conditional because Liza Sargent, our civil engineer from SVE, needs to take this proposal in terms of fill and so forth to the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services for the alteration of terrain permit. And she does not want to apply for the FEMA permit until she has feedback from DES. So all of that's going to take until probably the end of the year to get FEMA and DES permits. So she is worried about designating the flood storage compensation area precisely at this stage. She's pretty confident, however, that it won't be more than what she has proposed, but it could be a little less, it could be a little more. And so we propose that the city council give conditional approval. Essentially, we need to know conceptually whether the city council agrees that part of the land can be for this compensation area, which means it has to remain open space. Kids can play in it and so forth, but it can't be developed with buildings. And you'll hear from the staff, I'm sure, at your next meeting about any recommendations regarding that issue. I suggested that the conditional approval be conditioned on the agreement of the city manager with the area. Of course, she'll have input from staff, and the condition of the city attorney's office to oversee the language of the easement that the city would be granting to the Monadnock Conservancy for to allow this area to be for compensation. But I think it might be helpful for you to see exactly how much of this entire 3.5 acre parcel is in the 100-year floodplain, where it is in relation to the Monadnock Conservancy headquarters, and then where the proposed storage area would be based on what our engineer knows now. So I'll just ask
Sure.
Tara to show you that.
So the outer boundary is the lot boundaries today, which is a 3.5 acre lot. It's the former overflow parking lot for Colony Mill on Ashwillet Street. So Ashwillet Street's here, the Ashwillet River's here. This land is the current Ashwillet River trail and greenway space. To the south of the parcel is Target Dry Cleaners, Mamaskona Bank. And to the north is Ashwillet Court, which has some residences on the north side of Ashwillet Court. The yellow highlighted line is the outer boundary of where the 100-year floodplain lies on the parcel. In orange is the location of the city's easement for a storm drain that runs north-south through the parcel. And there's a catch basin where stormwater feeds into and then continues south. I'm just going to are there any questions on the existing lot itself and the floodplain boundaries?
Associate, on SVE's chart, they have that blue outline.
Sure, let me turn the,
Can you just show me where that blue outline would be on that chart?
yes. So on this
Oh,
side,
there it is.
so the proposed lot for the Monadnock Conservancy's share of this 3.5 acre parcel is approximately 1 acre, a little bit more than 1 acre, as Tom mentioned, and it's highlighted in the pink. This is the proposed layout and floor plan of the office headquarters space, and then there'd be parking to the north. Because, as Tom mentioned, there'd be fill to support this development, which would be filling in the floodplain area. we need to compensate offsite. So it's about 700 cubic yards of floodplain storage that needs to be compensated somewhere else. There's not enough room on the proposed parcel to accommodate all the storage area. There's some. So the blue boundary is the outer boundary of the area that would be flood storage that we're adding. So what essentially would happen is, in this scenario, there's the volume that needs to be compensated would be about a foot depression that's dug on the adjacent city land. And it would just be like a grassed area. And it would need to be permanently open space so that you couldn't put structures on it without compensating for the fill for those structures elsewhere on the site or elsewhere somewhere else. And as Tom mentioned, just to note, the reason we're going off-site is just that on the Monadnock Conservancy's proposed parcel, this area between the pink and the yellow line is the only area on that lot that's outside of the 100-year floodplain. Everything else is inside of it. So any fill in that floodplain, so any work that's done for the parking lot or for the building means that it's a one-to-one basis for compensation of flood storage somewhere else.
I'm sorry, Mike was, can you show, I think it's along the western border where the Jonathan Daniels Trail is?
The boundary of the parcel?
Yeah, is that where the Jonathan Daniels Trail is?
Yes, I hear Andy saying yes. Yes. So the trail is part of the trail you can see right here on this plan, but it does continue along the river.
So it has no effect on the trail at all, okay.
No, it would all, it would be within the boundaries of the existing parcel owned by JRR Properties today. The land that's outside of the pink and within the outer boundary would be the land that would be donated to the city for a park space.
I remember there used to be carnivals back there.
It used to be paved, and now it's all grass today.
Okay, does anyone from the panel have questions? Andrew, please.
Thank you. So the plan for the compensatory storage is to lower the elevation of that blue highlighted segment by 1 foot?
That's the current plan. So it'd be a shallow depression. It is possible, I know that Liza Sargent, the engineer working on this project, has been in sort of preliminary discussions with Don Lucier about potentially removing the storm drain that runs along north-south of the parcel. But if we were to do that, what that would mean is we could go deeper, so create a deeper depression to remove the storm drain. And that would, therefore, we could shrink the boundaries of the blue line. So it'd be a smaller area that we would have to encumber of the city land because we'd have more depth, more volume created where that where that storm drain is today, which would become like a drainage swale in the future.
Understood. My other question is, do we know what kind of fill is currently in that lot beneath what was the parking lot? Is that like potentially old coal ash or urban fill, or is it just natural material?
I don't know that.
Okay.
I can try to find out for you, but I don't know the answer.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. The current location that's where you want to put the storage, what's the ground surface like there now?
It's just a flat, grassy area.
All right, so it's not standing water at all.
I don't think so.
No, and really the land, the topography is sloping towards that catch basin, so the water does drain into that storm drain that's on the site today.
Yeah, so.
But it's very flat.
Yeah, if you were to lower it, what's the chance of it turning into a pond?
I think that's what Liza was trying to avoid by creating more of a shallower depression that's 1 foot instead of digging 2 to 3 feet down and having a smaller area that would be encumbered. If the storm drain that's there today is removed, I think that the very preliminary discussions that Liza had with Dawn were to create more of a meandering sort of channel that would still be more of a swale. It would be, the slopes would be at a 4-to-1 ratio, so they'd be safe. It wouldn't be like a steep bank that there would be a risk of children falling in or, but there would be that would be a scenario where there may be water that is present on the property.
So the base elevation would be what relative to the 100-year floodplain level and to the existing river level?
So the floodplain elevation today is 474 feet and 8 inches above, or that's above sea level, that's the elevation. The proposed building will be, as Tom mentioned, about 1.5 feet above that elevation, so at 476 feet. The comp storage area would be 1 foot below the floodplain elevation, so at like 473, a little bit more than 473.
And the river?
I don't know the elevation of the river.
I mean,
I
it
don't
goes
have
up and
it.
down, of course, but. Andrew, do you know?
If I may, with a follow-up question? I think what Councilor Haas is trying to get at is, do we know what the groundwater elevation is in that area?
I don't have that information this evening, but
You-
we could be prepared to have that when Liza, our engineer, is present.
Yeah, that would be good. My concern, I think, Councilor Haas's concern, not to put words in your mouth, is that potentially lowering the elevation there could dig into into the water table, because we do live, that area is a stratified drift aquifer, so the water table's pretty high. It's also adjacent to a river, which rhymes with high water table, so
Certainly.
that's just one concern I would have.
I do know that that was something that Liza factored into her calculations, but we'll be able to have more information.
Yeah, continue.
Thank you.
All right, continuing, and of course, we're dealing with flood maps that are 18 years old at this point. Do you have any projections or any ability to do projections to what might be appropriate today? Dealing more with surface water runoff rather than river rise flooding?
So
Tough question, sorry.
with respect to the actual boundary of the floodplain today, knowing that they're outdated and climate is changing, what would be potentially what's a more realistic floodplain boundary? Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
I don't think that we've done those calculations, nor do I think that we'll be doing those calculations. However, I know the city did do floodplain mapping of it, or had an engineering firm do like hydraulic analysis and floodplain mapping. I think it was in 2015. So those plans could be referenced to see what using fairly current data, understanding what the flooding, the boundaries of what the floodplain would be like in that area are based on more than just FEMA's mapping.
Yeah, thank you. I think that'd be very important to the submission. I think we see more flooding from surface water runoff and hydrology of the immediate area than we might see from river rise, although river rise is pretty nasty too. So we talked about the current conditions, the water table level, and and you're still waiting for information back from city engineer on use of that stormwater drainage area?
Yes, he actually contacted us either yesterday or today and said he had some ideas about taking advantage of the Monadnock Conservancy's needs as it may relate to the city's needs with respect to that stormwater drainage. Something needs to be done for that stormwater pipe, I think.
Right.
And so we're going to put our heads together.
Okay, thank you. Those are my concerns. Councilor Madison, anything that we didn't cover?
I think I'm all set at this point, thank you. But I think Bobby has.
First of all, I want you to know, we have a hydrologist and an engineer here, so we're getting a lot of expertise, information. Bobby, please.
All right, now you hear from the software developer. I'm a big fan of the compensatory storage that went in across the road of 101 that the state put in. You know, it's basically a constructed wetland. You know, I've heard there's eagles there. It seems to be growing in very nicely, and I think they did a good job. I'm not seeing that same dynamic as part of this project. I mean, you're talking about, instead of building a constructed wetland, you're talking about basically having a lawn that's a foot lower than a lawn might normally would be, and I would guess, you know, maybe a little spongy. I'm worried about, you know, lawn space needs to be fertilized, needs to be cut, needs to be maintained. I'd much rather see you go in a direction of a constructed wetland. You know, maybe even you could build in some boardwalks for observation or something like that, but go a little deeper. You know, this is a conservation project. You know, let's make it green. Let's make that into habitat that is healthy and useful and, you know, good for pollinators, instead of, you know, just another big stretch of lawn. So that's my 2 cents.
We'll
Can I
pass
ask
it on.
about the uses of compensatory areas? It has to be 100% permeable land?
Yes.
Okay. Can you make a ball field out of it or something, or?
What I've been told is that as long as it does not have any development, so, for example, you can't put a dugout or, you know, something of that nature there, but it could be a play field.
Thank you.
One more, thank you, Chair. Just a comment that we need to pay a lot more attention, any development like this along the streams and in low-lying areas, of which there are a lot in the city, because we're a lot more vulnerable than we ever were because of changing conditions in the atmosphere. And our mapping doesn't always help us understand that very well. Other changes in the neighborhoods, changes upstream and downstream, can immediately impact what we think is good judgment based on what we've done before. I'm sure you're familiar with these things. Just glad to be working with you on it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
You probably know this, but about 15 years or so ago, I represented the Colony Mill in an 88-unit condominium development on that same site, fully approved by the planning board. But fortunately for all of us, financial issues made that not happen. Then my current clients acquired it, basically to preserve it, and took up the pavement, and are now donating it to two, the municipality and a nonprofit.
Thank you, Tom. Andy, were you waiting to speak to it?
I was, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to give a little backstory related to the storm drain channel. So that's been a CIP project for the last several years. We haven't done anything with that, only because we didn't know what was going to be happening with this particular parcel. So we've been working right alongside Mr. Hanna and his clients to kind of like wait and figure things out. I think one of the nice things related to this, the Ashwillet River Park Advisory Board is aware of the project. They're in support of what the future development may be. They're kind of excited about what could happen. The other piece is to address some of the questions from the counselors tonight. We have a great example at Russell Park and Beaverbrook and the stormwater runoff that we just created. So we do have our engineer team, myself and some others, Councilor Williams and Tara here were both part of that particular committee when we were operating it when she was with the city. So we do have some great ideas that are going to be happening there. And I think to Councilor Williams' point, And the Asheville River Park Advisory Board is really looking forward to the educational piece of what we can do and add value to Asheville River Park through education, specifically with Monadnock Conservancy right there, with Antioch, and kind of a whole collaborative that would happen as a result of that. So keep in mind, just counselors, that education for natural environment is going to be top priority from those who are thinking about the design process. So, thank you.
The storm drain issue, is that just one pipe, or is there also like back switches or anything else?
No, just one storm pipe that is old. It connects from there and eventually empties out into Mill Creek. But that one section was scheduled in the CIP for, I think, like maybe 5 years ago. And we've just kind of been holding on to the project until we kind of had direction. So, and I think what you'll see next month when we come back will be a pretty good opportunity.
You have a question for Andy?
Mr. Chair, yeah, Andy, so for Pat Russell Park, did you have to create any compensatory storage areas over there?
So the storm drain channel originally went from Carpenter Street and was 90 degrees over to Beaver Brook. We changed the angle of it to about 45 and created a particular storage area that would then filter back into Beaver Brook. So the intent is that the water comes in, kind of stays, and then filters back through a riparian buffer into Beaver Brook to clean it. And so far it seems to be working. A lot of wildlife has been generated around there. I've seen a lot of different butterflies, birds, things that I haven't seen in that area in a very long time. So forever. So it's been positive.
Okay.
Any questions for Andy? Okay, thank you, Andy. We'll go to the public. Anyone from the public have any questions, concerns? And Tara, I never asked for your last name for the minute taker.
Oh, sorry, Tara Kessler.
Thank you. I knew it, but I just... Okay, I guess we're at the point where I entertain a motion.
Move to recommend the request for 0 Ashwalet Street compensatory storage be placed on more time for the city to review the request and the consequences of it.
And I second.
We have a motion on the floor. Any comments, questions? If not, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carries, so this will go on more time, and we'll see you back here at this committee.
Thank you for your time tonight.
All right, always good seeing you, Tom.
Yep.
And Tara. Next on our agenda is the warrant for unlicensed dogs. This usually goes to MSFI, but I think they wanted it to stay with Bobby and Andrew, so it came over to our committee.
That is true, yes. Actually, we do typically go to MSFI with this, but state statute requires us to bring this to you between June 1st and June 20th, and with our somewhat new committee schedule, that no longer works well to get to MSFI in June. And I think preference is to not come in May, because we're still trying to gather people, get them to come in. And so we wait until after June 1st to bring this to you anyway. It has to be voted on between June 1 and June 20, so this puts us in line to have this before you at the next council meeting. This action will result in a $25 fine being issued to anyone that has not licensed their dog for this year. They had until April 30th to do that. Right now, we have approximately 519 dogs remaining unlicensed, and 424 owners are still listed on our warrant. 100 of those are the new dogs, and the remaining are non-renewals that need to come in. We've issued 2,800 licenses so far this year.
2,800.
That's actually a lot more than we used to do. I think it was like maybe the COVID factor, people getting dogs, but now we're up in the 3,200 to 3,400 range on licenses by the time we're concluding this process. So in terms of outreach, I think it's important to know that we go beyond what statute requires. We do 2 public notices, those are required, but we also do biweekly emails to anyone that is willing to give us their email address to have on file. We do a postcard reminder to anyone without email, and we also do a robocall, and they hear my voice on the phone asking them to please come in and relicense their dog so they can avoid late fees. The late fees did start June 1st, so every month from June 1st forward, there is a $1 late fee assessed. And then in mid-July, we will send out fines and have them due somewhere around the beginning of August. The police department assists us with this process. The second wave of that process is them actually going door to door with any remaining fines and just verifying whether there's still actually a dog at that residence. So that would happen early August.
Very detailed.
So,
Terry, for the
yes.
people watching at home, can you tell us who you are?
oh, of course, Terry Hood with the city clerk's office.
Thank you.
I know you know me, so I forgot to tell everyone else.
Yeah. And everything you're going above and beyond the requirements of the state statute,
That's very much so, yes.
and we thank you for that.
And we do it every year because we really prefer to assist folks with avoiding the fine. We don't want them to have to pay the fine. So we do our best to reach out to folks and make sure they know that there's a pending issue they need to deal with us. I do have a little bit of information about why we're doing this licensing program, if you're interested in hearing that.
I know Ed is interested, yes.
Okay, I thought maybe. So one of the reasons we do this is to ensure that dogs are getting their rabies vaccinations. Rabies is something that is easily transferred among mammals, and when someone develops a rabies infection, it ultimately can result in death, so it's a serious thing if you get bitten by a rabid dog. So in the late 1800s, 1885, a vaccine was created, and then a few years later, a law was passed that required licensing of dogs in New Hampshire. So that's how we started doing this, so it's been something that long-standing. Some of the fees that we collect do go back to the state to provide some spaying and neutering services for folks that can't afford to do that. Some of the funds go to the Agricultural Commission for things that they need to do. I'm trying to remember exactly how they use the funds, but that I know a portion goes to each of those 2 entities, the State Treasury and the Agricultural Commission. So that's what happens with the funds. And, one of the reasons it's important for people to do this is rabies, but also, it is a mechanism for a dog to be returned to their owner if it's lost. It's also a way for someone who may have been bitten by a dog to know that that dog has hopefully a valid rabies, because we don't issue a license to an owner unless the dog has had a rabies shot. So that concludes my comments. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
No, thank you. That was pretty thorough. We went for a couple of years without an animal control officer, and we now have one, and because it was hard to find someone with the special talents needed to do that job. Does that help with this process?
Yeah, it does. I mean, the period of time when we didn't have that position filled, there were other folks at the police department that assisted us, but certainly that's a position that's important to us to have filled. They do other things besides dogs, obviously, so we're really pleased to have her come aboard, and she comes with a lot of knowledge too, a lot of background in animal behavior and that sort of thing, so I think she's been a great addition.
That's good news. Anyone from the panel have questions? Please, Ed.
Thank you, Chair. Terry, you left out the one other thing that we talked about as far as how we are constrained in the cost of licenses and costs of fines and costs of follow-ups by state law.
Sure,
It's
yeah.
an
I mean, this-
unfunded mandate, essentially.
Well, it is a statute, state statute. The statute does limit what we can charge for a license, and it also dictates how much of the fee we collect goes to them. So yes, you're correct in that. We are currently charging, I believe, the most that we can for a license under that.
Yeah.
So.
So I hope everybody who has an unlicensed dog that's listening to this will license their dogs. Thank you.
Is there anyone from the public? Please, Counselor.
It's Jacob Favelis, 229 Main Street. I just have a question for the clerk's office in terms of if there's a sense of how many dogs may be out there that are not covered by these two lists, either the new dogs in Keene that are getting the rabies shots, or the reauthorization, and if there's a sense of how much revenue we might be missing there.
So the answer to that is no. There's really no way for us to track that data. The way we find out about new dogs that come into the community is through them being vaccinated at a local veterinarian. The vet's offices are required by law to notify us when that occurs. So if someone isn't taking their dog to the vet, we may not know that there's a dog at that residence. It is something that is most likely going to come to us through a complaint from a neighbor, potentially, something like that.
It's a complaint-driven enforcement.
Exactly.
Anyone else from the public? Panel, are you ready for a motion? I'll entertain a motion.
I move to recommend that the city council issue a warrant for unlicensed dogs pursuant to NHRSA 46614, and to direct the city clerk's office and the Keene Police Department to issue civil forfeiture to those dog owners.
Can you turn on your microphone, please?
Who have failed to license their dog by April 30, 2024.
And I second.
We have a motion on the floor. Any comments or questions? If not, all in favor? Opposed? Terry, this recommendation will go to the full city council next Thursday,
Thank you.
okay? And you'll do the agenda, so.
I will
Thank you.
be helping with that, yes.
Okay, I believe we have one more item on our agenda. Relating to sidewalk cafe enforcement measures, ordinance O 2024-06B.
Yes, and I will be addressing that one as well. Terry Hood, City Clerk's Office. We're back before the committee with some amendments to this proposed ordinance that you may recall was here in May. May 8th, we were before the committee with the original version. We left committee with an A version, had a couple of changes to it. Those changes included, we had added language allowing the city manager to extend licenses beyond the November 1st expiration in 10-day increments, or it would have been just for one 10-day increment. The change allows additional 10-day increments to occur if the weather is amenable to that. And the second change had to do with putting a more succinct timeframe on an unlicensed business getting themselves in compliance by applying for a license. I think that when we brought it to you, it said within a reasonable time frame, and now it provides them a 7-day window within which to apply. So with those two changes, we had an A version that was slated to go to council at the last meeting. During the time in between, we had an opportunity to speak to the new fire marshal, Richard Wood, and he was kind enough to review the language we had drafted, and he had a couple of suggested amendments to it. And so we thought it would be wise to have it come back to you and incorporate those. So Richard Wood is actually here tonight to speak to those amendments, and also he's going to talk a little bit about complaints and a mechanism that we've come up with for taking in complaints.
Richard, welcome. Please just give your name and title, please.
Good evening. Yeah, Richard Wood, Fire Marshal and Building Official here for Keene.
Thank you.
So after reviewing this, a couple of things that came to mind were how do we enforce it? What does that look like? And we kind of cleaned that language up a little bit. The other thing was really kind of thinking through how we can be consistent in our approach for people to access the city resources to let us know that they see a problem. And so we utilized the same complaint mechanism that's in place for other complaints and added another category for sidewalk cafe licenses. That way people can apply. They can go online, they can submit an anonymous complaint if they choose. It'll be tracked in the city portal so they can actually go back on the web page and see what the status is of the complaint and that kind of stuff. So those were probably the two biggest things, I think, that we made for suggestions.
Any questions? Please.
Thank you, Chair. Rick, is the reporting mechanism, will that be through the See-Click Fix app, or is it separate?
No, there's a separate complaint piece on the community development website, so that deals with housing property standards, those types of things. We rolled it all into that particular mechanism, and the reason is because that's also tied into the portal, so people can go in and search any address to see any complaints plus any activities related to those complaints. So staff put comments in once they investigate a complaint. So if you do something anonymously, you still have the ability to get updated as to what the status is.
Thank you.
Sure, I just want to, in concert with what was just said, that system, we really have two systems. There's the See-Click Fix system, so if you're out on the street and you want to report a pothole, be a good citizen for the day, right? But the citizen complaint portal is already in place, and it does handle other types of complaints, as well as being able to look at the restaurant inspections, for example, that kind of thing. So it's a self-service portal. And I'm really grateful that they were able to put in this one feature, so we didn't have to come up with another system to do that. And we're very happy with the way that people can submit a complaint and also check on the status of it.
Yeah, thank you. We all don't like overlapping, contradicting systems.
And Rick, I just want to thank you. I see a lot of proactive things happening since your arrival, and it's always better to be proactive than have to react to issues like this. So
Well, thank you for that. We certainly are trying to be responsive and make positive change.
Is there anyone from the public have any questions or comments? Please come forward.
Hi,
Just give your name and address, please.
Dory Maston, 326 Matthews Road in Swansea, New Hampshire.
You're welcome to be here.
Thank you. Just a couple things that I just want to mention. Whatever you do, but the complaint system, at least for me, hasn't really been working out well. I have had several complaints on my patio without knowing that there was complaints. So I would get a letter from, most recently, from the Liquor Commission. When contacted by the Liquor Commission, they said they got a complaint from the city of Keene. Go to the city of Keene, they say there was a complaint filed. Then you have to file the RSA, whatever it is, in order to get a copy of the complaint, so that you can really understand where it all originated. I have had several complaints from Councilor Tobin, specifically to my patio. Yes, there was one that mentioned almost every patio in the city. But I had to do a lot of work to get that, to find out what it was. And it was actually a little bit of everything, from the TV to the lights, to the patio itself, to my light bulbs, or the way the extension cord is plugged in. I believe if there is a complaint filed on any of us in the city, we should know right away. I think we have a right to give input before it gets to an extent such as the Liquor Commission or the Chief of Police. In this instance, the one that obviously affects me the most is Counselor saw someone cross our patio with a pint glass of beer. Could have been beer, could have been soda, could have been anything in the glass, but I'm quite sure it probably was a beer. In the past, we've been allowed to carry our beer, customers have, across the patio. We've never had an incident there. We've never had complaints about it. It's never been an issue. Now, all of a sudden, this is an issue. The liquor department doesn't have a problem with it other than the city does. It's the city ordinance that says it's considered an open container. It's never been an open container. My patio is licensed. I don't know how many came out to make sure the patio was licensed. We carry insurance on the sidewalk, which is very expensive. In the spirit of the law, that's not what open container is meant for. Nowhere in, I'm sorry, my pacemaker's going off.
Take your time.
In the spirit of the ordinance, it does not say that it is okay for a server to cross the sidewalk with alcohol, nor does it say it's against any law for Terry or yourself to walk across the patio with alcohol. The 10-day, I believe it's 10 days, Terry can correct me if I'm wrong, notice to fix a situation without you're having your license suspended. I'm okay with that in most instances, but this complaint is currently in the midst. In the meantime, we have to have someone carry the alcohol across the sidewalk. However, as everyone knows, everyone's in a shortage for employees. That includes me. I'm no exception to the rule. So having to find someone to come on board to carry drinks across our licensed, insured patio was quite a burden. We did it. We spoke with the Liquor Commission. They were very kind to us, and I don't think they planned on rushing out to Keene to arrest a customer for carrying their beer across the sidewalk. But I think the rules need just a little wiggle room for instances like this. I mean, the situation for me was resolved, well, in the meantime. However, 10 days to fix it, if it was something as urgent as that, or as that requires hiring people. Thankfully, a friend of a friend had someone that would come and do it. But sometimes resolving a problem takes a little bit longer. So with the 10 days, I would like to hope that we give the city manager or the clerk's office permission to have some leeway in a situation such as that. Because that put us in a pretty tough spot.
It sounds like what you're asking for is better communication.
Better communication, and I think the anonymous complaints are a little cowardly only in situations like this. I mean, if it was public safety or, I don't know, something serious, I guess it's warranted. But when it becomes harassing, I think it's a different story. I think they should at least have names on them. I had to do a lot of homework to figure out the whole basis of where this all came from.
Okay, something I did find out today is, because so much of this is under the purview of the State Liquor Commission, sometimes when the city sends an inquiry to them, they send an inspector down, and they call it working on a complaint, and it's really not a complaint, it's just an inquiry to find out how to handle that type of situation.
Liquor
And I think that's
control-
where some of the confusion is.
Liquor control has been, especially with all that's going on in Keene, liquor control has visited us quite often in the past year with no complaints. I mean, many, many nights they stand right at our door and watch the customers go across the patio. This has never been an issue for us. We have no incidences. There are no broken glasses. This was a complaint from a city councilor, and there were multiple complaints. I just don't think I should have had to dig and do as much work and get so emotionally charged over it to find out it was a city councilor who could have just stopped by. Hey, Dory, is this allowed? I should have been able to find out who made the complaint and why.
Okay, I'm reading the ordinance in section 46-1194A addresses that 10-day extension. Is that the part you're talking about?
Yeah, it was just really hard for us at that moment.
So if I could just speak to that briefly, the 10-day extension is not related to suspending a license if compliance isn't reached within 10 days. The compliance section actually says within a reasonable time frame. So we specifically didn't set a time frame for compliance on that part of it because we don't know what the nature of these complaints is going to be. And something might be as easy as walk out there and correct it right now. Something else may take, some time to deal with. So it's provided that way to give flexibility. And I think Rick had a comment to make as well.
Yeah, and I think it's important, some of the things that Ms. Matston described about not having access to things, that's one of the reasons that we chose the complaint portal as the vehicle, because it does give instant access, so we don't have to go through a 91A request